I'm Fred Willis, a long-time friend of Graham, and on behalf of Maureen, would like to say some words about Graham. Graham John Anslow was born on the 17th of February 1941. He lived in Stanmore with his parents Gwyneth and Geoffrey and his sister Lynette, who passed away at a young age. In the later years, the family moved to East Hills, residing in a house on land of Mooney Avenue, where Graham and Maureen built their present house. Graham was a quiet, studious student, attending Fort Street High School, which was a selective school in Petersham. This school today still has a very proud tradition. Once a Fortean, always a Fortean. We believe Graham did a stint in the Australian Army Reserve. Graham started work in the ANZ Bank in the 60s through to the late 80s. After this and up to his retirement, Graham and Maureen worked together running a successful St George curtain cleaning business where they met many wonderful people, some becoming friends. They outperformed major cleaning companies to have contracts with the likes of Novotel and the Department of Defence. Graham and Maureen married 41 years ago on the 16th of February 1980. Graham's father has been quoted as saying marrying Maureen was the best thing Graham had done. One of the favourite pastimes was to join the local walking club that took them to many interesting places. Graham and Maureen also travelled extensively during their 41 years of marriage. They went to some fabulous trips, going to England, Europe, Alaska, Canada, Hong Kong, and New Zealand. They also enjoyed going on cruises, the most recent one going to Japan in 2019. They both had a love of travelling on steam trains and long-distance railway journeys, such as Darwin to Sydney, Perth to Sydney. Graham always had a love of cars and was very proud of his latest Lexus. I would now like to read memories penned by John Shepherd, or Sheppo as Graham would call him. My first association with Graham was as a junior clerk at the ANZ Bank, Pitt and Hunter Street, Sydney, where we developed a workmates relationship, an occasional beer after work with other similar age staff at the time, some nights out on the town, and the usual teenager stuff. We later developed a friendship and did more activities together, although this was punctuated by the fact I had other mates in my own suburb, as well as a steady girlfriend, and Graham lived a fair distance away. However, I always found an excuse to catch up with Graham on a pretty regular basis around this time. I don't recall Graham having a permanent girlfriend, although he quietly informed me of some nice casual experiences with the fairer sex from time to time. Some of the things I remember. One of our workmates, Peter, purchased a VS Vaucluse senior sailing boat and stored it at the Vaucluse Sailing Club, Watsons Bay. At the time, none of us were experienced sailors, and one Saturday afternoon, while sailing down the harbour in a strong westerly, with the spinnaker up, a gust picked us up and dumped us in the harbour. With varying yachts bearing down on us and unable to right the boat, Graham seemed quite unfazed, and as he usually was, whilst waiting for a good Samaritan who eventually came and towed us to Quantarf Beach. We bailed it out and sailed to the club for a nerve-settling few beers. This was just one of the many sailing adventures with Peter, having significantly improved his skills since that event. Graham purchased a VW Beetle and did some camping trips in this. It was pretty indestructible, and Graham would sometimes push it to its limits. On one trip, I can remember sliding sideways through the bends on a winding dirt road from Yass to Wee Jasper. We also did some trips to Jenolan and Wongan Caves with a cave exploring group, crawling through caves not open to the public due to very limited access, but with pristine formations. After I completed my 3 months national service, I reconnected with Graham and our other bank friends and pretty well continued where we'd left off. At that time, Miller's Brewery, long gone now, were building and renovating pubs in the suburbs, heading for the 10 p.m. closing, with beer gardens, entertaining, and the likes of Graham Bell and the Bell Boys, Cole Joy and the Joy Boys, to name a few. So these became a common outlet for our nights out. We also met up with Graham's dad a few times after work on a Friday night, a nice guy who had served in the Air Force. About 1960, the bank cleaned all us guys out, and we were posted to different branches. I finished up in Central West New South Wales, then relieving staff, and later Canberra, where I met and married my wife Margaret. I lost track of exactly where Graham went, but I know he was on relieving staff for a while, serving in places like Broken Hill, Goulburn, and Captain's Flat. I know he spent a few years in Melbourne at some stage, and after his dad passed away, Graham returned to be with his mum in Sydney. Although distant, we maintained the occasional phone contact at our employer's expense, and after I proposed to my now wife, who I met in Canberra, Graham agreed to be best man, and along with another original workmates, Burjo, Brian Burgess, as groomsman. In our early years of marriage, Marge and I would often invite Graham and Burgess down to Canberra for the weekend, line up a few girls from the bank staff, and go to dinner, dance, and a show. They were good times. Graham was a very accomplished dancer, both ballroom and rock and roll. I always wondered why he still was single at that stage, when he had such a talent for attracting girls. My wife loved dancing with Graham, as I had 2 left feet. I can recall an earlier time in his home at East Hills. He was dancing with his younger sister, doing rock and roll and jive and all the fancy moves, lifts and throws that you would see in the likes of Grease or Dancing with the Stars. He was very good. Lucky they had 9-foot ceilings. As I elected for country service in the bank and we started our family, contact became less frequent. Then one day, a shock phone call from Graham. He was getting married. Couldn't believe it. This long-time bachelor is finally hitched. The wedding, of course, was fantastic. Here's just a few things that have stayed in my memory. We were sitting with Graham's mother. She whispered to Marge and me, "Graham is going to be well organised now." Then later, at the customary goodbye to guests as they left for their honeymoon, Maureen had finished, whilst Graham was only halfway around the horseshoe. "Hurry up, Graham," says Maureen, to which Graham replies in his unmistakable grin and soft voice, "I won't be long, dear," and then proceeded at his same leisurely pace. As we continued down our respective life paths, we didn't really reconnect until our children left home. Then we occasionally hosted Graham and Maureen for weekends at our home. As Graham and Maureen were living in a 2-bedroom unit before building their new home, they would reciprocate generously by inviting us, along with their friends, on fully catered harbour and river cruises to celebrate milestones in their lives. Graham was a quiet, reserved person with a good sense of humour, unruffled in many crises, and would rather go with the flow than create any argument. He had a way with words that could put anyone in their place needed. Above all, he was a good and trusted friend and leaves us with many happy memories. Goodbye, old mate, John and Mark. And finally, I would like to say my goodbye to a wonderful friend. I'll always remember you, Graham.